Right, Bava Batra tzadi aleph amud aleph. אז ל"ג בעומר שמח.
למד ג' לעומר.
למד ג' בעומר.
33 לעומר.
ונקדיש את זה גם לעילוי נשמת יובל יצחק. Yeah, it was a hard week for a good friend of ours. מצב. So yeah, we'll try to keep our learning with his neshama in mind. Okay. All right. So Bava Batra tzadi aleph amud aleph. So what we're going to be learning this week is 5 teachings that are brought in the name of Rav Chanan bar Rava, who taught them in the name of Rav. And there is a common thread between these teachings, but usually in our shiur, what we do is we have kind of a central idea that we develop and look at Mefarshim, and this week we'll do a little bit shulver gam lag ba'omer, but not. It's just kind of it's 5 somewhat related teachings, but we'll just kind of learn an idea or two about each one of them. We'll look at Mefarshim and other midrashim just to kind of develop an idea. I'll try to offer kind of a small chidush on one of them as well. Okay, so the Gemara Bava Batra, it starts as follows: Siman Malach Avraham 10 shanim sheniftar nitnaseh levado. Okay, so this siman is for the 5 teachings of Rav Chanan bar Rava in the name of Rav. Okay, so if you remember from last week, we were learning about Ruth, and so that's the segue into these teachings. Is the first of these 5 statements has to do with Ruth's family. Amar Rav Chanan bar Rava Amar Rav Elimelech v'Salmon u'Ploni Almoni v'Avi Naomi kulan b'nei Nachshon ben Aminadav. So Rav midrashically claims that Nachshon had several sons. Among them were Elimelech, right, who was Naomi's original husband, and then Salmon, who is the ancestor of David HaMelech through that direct line, and Ploni Almoni, which says that's kind of the connection mishpachtit, V'Avi Naomi. So that would mean that Naomi was Elimelech's niece.
Ploni Almoni.
It's the guy who didn't want Ruth.
Right, he was the one who didn't want to marry Ruth. Okay?
Ploni Almoni. I don't want to marry Ploni Almoni.
Yeah. I saw in the Midrash, I thought this for years, and I saw this year in the Midrash. I always thought, maybe his name was just Ploni Almoni.
That's one option, or what did Midrash say?
And everyone's, no, they call him Ploni Almoni because he was anonymous. Like, you don't want to give him a name, because the whole idea is about the name. I was like, but maybe his name was just Ploni Almoni. And then I saw in the Midrash, someone said, Kach Shmo.
I think I saw it too. I think Rashi mentions it also.
Yeah, so I was like, okay. Anyways,
That's his real name, Ploni Almoni.
Maika Mashmalan,
Which means that we decided to change his real name into not a name.
Right.
So we did that, not the Midrash.
Exactly.
Like the Ivrit, Halashon Ivrit.
That's right. Or you could say the guy who refused to marry Ruth because he was afraid that his name would not continue, ironically has become a name that has been kept l'dorot now as the name of nameless. The nameless, but he's always mentioned. If that was his real name, everyone's always saying Ploni Almoni.
Okay.
Anyways, whatever. It's like Kohelet. So Kohelet just goes on and on. Havel Havalim. There's no purpose. Anything chadash tachadashamish. Everything is pointless. And the only thing that lasts, 3,000 shana achrei is his sefer. We're still reading his words, even though all he says that there's no point to anything. So that's ironic. Anyways, Maika Mashmalan. So what does this teach us? The fact that all these people were siblings. Who cares? שאפילו, הוא עוד קורא שלמה המלך. שאפילו מי שיש לו זכות אבות אינה עומדת לו בשעה שיוצא מארץ לחוץ לארץ. Because we learned last week about how terrible it is to leave Eretz Yisrael. So it says, even if you're the son of Nachshon ben Aminadav, that still doesn't help you. Okay? Good. Teaching number 2. V'amar Rav Chanan bar Rava amar Rav.
Even if you're Maurice Rabbeinu.
I think he probably would have wanted to go
You're allowed
to
to go for vacation.
Okay, let's continue, okay? Imei de Avraham, Amatlai bat Karnevo. Avram Avinu's mother's name was Amatlai, and she was the daughter of someone named Karnevo. Imei de Haman, Amatlai bat Orevti. And Haman's mother's name was also Amatlai, the daughter of someone named Orevti. Now, how am I supposed to remember which Amatlai was Abraham's mother and which Amatlai was Haman's mother? V'simenach, tameh tameh, tahor tahor. All right, what does that mean?
But Karnevo or...
Right, so Karnevo, we'll see, we can just jump to it now, actually. Rashbam, so he says, why is that tahor? Because Karim, there's a pasuk in Chelet Karim in Hazinu, right? It means, like cattle that's fat. It's healthy tzon.
That isn't called.
With sheep, it is. It means that they have good meat. Karim mitzon, chelev karim. Okay. Yes. Okay. So tehorin hen, right? So they're tahor. Avraham tahor. So that's why we say amatlai bat carnivore. So tahor. In other words, the carnivore gave birth to Abraham. Okay. Orev, right? And what was Haman's grandparents' name? Orevti. So Orev is of Tameh, right? U'v'hamana mitameh. So that's Rashbam's explanation of Tameh tahor. Shita mekubetzet it's slightly differently. Perush Haman she'et Tameh imei amatlai v'chulei. Okay, so obviously the Orevti is the Orev. V'Avraham she'et tahor shem imo amatlai bat carnivore. So his girsah is with a kuf instead of with a kaf. Shu of tahor. So if it's the kuf, it can't be karim, right? Because a sheep is with chaf. So he says carnivore is the name of a kosher bird. So the idea is the same, but he says it's not a sheep, it's a bird. Chomikra, that's the mnemonic here of Simanach. The way to remember is tamet tamet tahor tahor. Okay? We'll talk about this more in the continuation of the shiur. And then Rav continues. Imei de David nitzevet bat Adel shema. David HaMelech's mother's name was Nitzevet. He made the Shimshon, I love this, Tzlel Ponit. Okay, Shimshon's mother's name was Tzlel Ponit.
Whose?
Ve'achate Nashian. And Shimshon's sister's name was Nashian. Shimshon.
His mother was what?
Her name was Tzlel Ponit. Okay, we'll talk about this also.
And his sister?
And his sister's name is Nashian.
Was he the Bechor?
Shimshon? Well, yeah, because his parents were, right, they couldn't have children before him.
So I guess he had again.
According to this, he had more siblings, yeah. So the Gemara asks, like, what is going on here? Why are we teaching this? It doesn't ask how we know this, which is, I think, a good question, but it says, what's the point of all this? So the answer is l'tshuvat minim. So, the Mefarshim say, the minim, they want to say, like, how come we don't know the names of, we know the names of some people in Tanakh, we don't know the names of other people in Tanakh. That teaches you, so this is to say, no, we also know through Mesorah the names of these other people. Right? So don't think that something's missing. Okay, V'amar Rav Chanan bar Rav Amarav, this is the third teaching, Eser Shanim, Nechbash Avraham Avinu, Shalosh Bekuta, V'sheva Bekardu. V'Rav Dimi min Ha'odea, Matne Ipcha. Okay, so Avraham Avinu was in prison for 10 years, 3 years in a place called Kuta, and 7 years in a place called Kardu. And Rav Dimi reversed them, so 7 years in Kuta and 3 years in Kardu. Amar Rav Chisda, Ivra ze'era de Kuta ze'ur Kasdim. Okay, and he says that Kuta is another name for Kasdim. That's where Avram was originally from. Again, what's really, why is this interesting, relevant is a good question. Okay, teaching number 4. ואמר רב חנן בר רבא אמר, אותו יום שנפטר אברהם אבינו מן העולם, so the day Avraham Avinu died, עמדו כל גדולי אומות העולם בשורה. So they're all lined up in respect to Avraham Avinu, ואמרו, אוי לו לעולם שעבד מנהיגו, ואוי לה לספינה שעבד קברניטה. Okay, so Kabarnita is like a captain of the ship, right?
I didn't know it's Aramaic. It sounds like a top set.
Ma.
If I was a Balishan, I'd be, Kabarnit is like, it's like...
Like Kabarnet?
It's like a Hebrew word.
For captain.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it's
anyway, similar, but I'm not a Balishan, so...
Captain Nobashep!
Okay, אז עמדו כולם בשורה, היום נפטר רבי שמעון בר יוחאי, maybe...
נכון, היום נפטר רבי שמעון בר יוחאי. That's true. והמתנשא לכל ראש. Okay, so the fifth teaching, it quotes this pasuk. Right, it doesn't introduce this one as Amar Rav Chanan Rav Amar Rav.
It does, Amar Rav Chanan Bar.
Oh, you're right, sorry. It just quotes the pasuk first, okay? Afilu reish garguta mishmaya mokmile. So what does it mean, המתנשא לכל ראש? It means that even whoever is the head of irrigation, even someone who has a very small job, like someone who has a very minor level of responsibility, is appointed min hashamayim. Right? Don't think that whatever you're doing ba'olam is כאילו לא חשוב. Every person has their tafkid, is appointed מלמעלה. Okay?
Garguta is irrigation, like watering?
Yeah, that's what I saw, yeah.
So there's a bdicha on army jobnikim.
Okay.
That they say שאתה משק ממטרות. Means that you're like you're in charge of turning on the water system.
Okay.
In the base.
Yeah, okay.
So
that's this person, there you go. So Mishmaya Mukmila. Yeah. Very good. Okay, so the first kind of idea I want to develop is the simanech tameh tameh tahor tahor. So I don't have a good answer for why suddenly we need a siman for this, as opposed to so many other teachings that also, would be helpful to have a mnemonic device. But specifically, the names of Avraham and Haman's mothers, why they need a siman, is not really clear to me. But the question that we can ask is, why tameh tameh tahor tahor? And the Ben Yoyada lays out the question. He says, "Yesh lachshot, havalei lememar tahor tamor tameh tameh." It should have reversed the order of the mnemonic. Why? D'chen b'tchilat ha'ma'amar hikdim imei d'Avram Avinu alav shalom li'imei d'Aman. Right, it taught Avram's mother was Amatlai bat Karnevo, Haman's mother was Amatlai bat Orefti, and the siman is tameh tameh tahor tahor. So that's confusing, right?
It should be tahor tahor tameh tameh.
Right. And that's not to mention that you would start with tahor, you would think, right?
But first we said Avraham, then we said
Avraham, and then Aman.
Within minutes.
ועוד נראה לי, so ונראה דתפס כן כדי לסיים בכי טוב. So first of all, Ben Yehuda says it's good to מתחיל בגנות ומסיים לשבח, okay? ועוד נראה לי כי הסימן של טמא טמא עדיף תפה, כי כתוב כן בתורה, פרשת תזריע. V'tameh tameh ikra, right? With the Mitzvah, the Torah says tameh tameh.
It's more of a siman.
It's a better siman because there's a mefurash kra. Ach tahor tahor lo nimtza ken b'mikra lo b'nevim v'lo b'ktuvim. ורק בעל המאמר סידר אותו כן אחר שמצא סימן במקרא של טמא טמא. לכך הקדים סימן זה של טמא כי הוא סימן אמיתי. לכן כתוב במקרא. Okay? So that's one answer he gives. ועוד נראה לי, and another answer, זה עדיף כי סימן הטמא מפורש יותר באמו של המן. I find this a bit more compelling. That if you look at the actual teachings, right? So Haman's grandmother's name was Orevti. So okay, tameh tameh, because Orevti is Orev, and Orev is the most. It doesn't say that the Orev is the most tameh bird, right? But this thing with the carnival, is it an oftahor? Is it a cattle? It's not really clear. So the Ben Yoyada says, all right, so it makes sense to start with the one that it's like a more obvious siman. ועוד נראה לי להעדיף כי סימן טמא מפורש יותר באמו של המן, שנקראת עורב אך סימן של טהור באמו של אברהם אבינו הוא ברמז דק. Right? It's just a weak hint. לכך זכר אותו הסימן קודם. Okay? So that's been a suggestion for the order of טמא טמא טהור. I brought here the Yun Yaakov, and like always, it's impossible to read. But I'll say it outside because we learned it last year, and then I want to kind of offer it as a small chidush, for a couple of minutes. Last year we learned the story. You wrote this last year, right? Okay, so Rabba Bar Nachmani. Remember, there's a story when he's about to die. So there's a machloket. Okay, so if you have Se'ar Lavan and Baheret, and you're not sure which one came first, right? So it's only if one of them came first, then it's Tameh. If the other one came first, Tahor. So if what's Safek? So you say Tameh or Tahor? And then we had the whole sugya there. I won't go into the details, but basically they asked Rabba to give machriya ben HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Malachei Asharet. And Rabba, when he was dying, he said Tahor, Tahor. That's what the Gemara says, right? So most of the Mefarshim understand that to mean that he was machriya that it's Tahor. That's why he said Tahor, Tahor. But the problem is that the Rambam then paskins Tameh, and there's all these questions of is it paskening against the Gemara and this and that. The Yun Yaakov in the comments here suggests that what Rabba was actually saying was Tameh, that it was Tameh. Why did he say Tahor, Tahor? Because basically what he was saying is whenever you have a Safek in Hilchot Sarat, so you go by the Chazakah. Okay? So if you have a Chazakah where it's Tameh, so you say Tameh. If you have a Chazakah where it's Tahor. This particular example is where you had like a Chatzi Se'al, and then the rest, and then the Baheret, and then the rest of the Se'al. So you were B'chazkat Tameh because there was already part of it there. Okay? So why did he say Tahor, Tahor, not Tameh, Tameh? So the Yun Yaakov says, because we have this idea elsewhere in Shas, right? Right? That a person should be careful not to say something negative. And the example it gives, that the Torah says, Mina be'ema te'ora, Mina be'ema asher inena te'ora, by Noach. So why does it say, Mina be'ema asher inena te'ora? I should say, Mina be'ema tme'ah. It goes out of its way not to say that, to teach me that you should avoid saying tme'ah as much as possible. leaving aside the fact it says tameh all over the Torah, like we saw tameh tameh ikra. But this idea of shalei tzei davar megunim b'pi, so Rabba was dying, so he wanted to die with the words tahor tahor and not tameh tameh, even though it's teaching the same idea. And all he was saying is you followed the chazakah of the safek. So he was really paskening the opposite of what mistaber from his words. Okay, so that's the Yaakov put together. Yeah. So now why am I bringing that up? So why am I bringing that up here? Because if I accept that approach, lichora, I have a problem here, right? Because it says here what? Tameh tameh tahor tahor. So why am I not being? So, but the truth is, the answer is because here, unlike with Rabba had to be machir on one thing. He had to teach one question, and so it was just a matter of the language that he would use. Is he going to use tameh tameh tahor tahor? But here, the siman is for two separate use cases. I have the case of Abraham and I have the case of Haman. So I can't avoid using tameh, right? Unless I were to say, eino tahor, tahor, tahor. But that really doesn't make a lot of sense because I'm already describing two different situations that are opposite from each other. So I have to say tameh tameh. And if I'm already saying tameh tameh, so then I can use these reasons of the Ben Yehoyada why I should start with tameh. No, it's the reasons of the Ben Yehoyada of why, it says tameh tameh, mefurash b'kara. So why didn't...
tameh is tahor and tahor is tameh?
No, we're going to get to that shortly. In other words, we could ask on the Ben Yehoyada, he says, there's a pasuk that says tameh tameh. So why didn't Rabbah say tameh tameh according to Yaakov when he was dying? Because that was the only... he was only saying one thing. If you're only going to say one thing... so then you should speak lo davar meguneh. But if you have to say both, so then put tameh first. There's a way to try to kind of like make everything work. Okay, very nice. And you just asked what's tameh tahor tahor tameh. So this is a Gemara in Avodah Zarah Lamed Tet Amud Aleph. Oh no. So I didn't bring it here, but there's a Gemara in Chulin which talks about every animal on land has a parallel in the sea. Okay. So, except for the chulda, for some reason.
What's a chulda?
A weasel.
What's a weasel?
It's a type of animal.
Exactly. In school today we saw a tiny baby gazelle that died.
That's awful.
Yeah, just
okay.
This little.
Wow, I'm sorry to hear that. You're very chatty tonight. Okay.
Wake up at 6:30 tomorrow.
Okay. So it says in Chulin that every animal on land has a parallel to an animal at sea. Okay? What does that mean? You have a seahorse and a land horse, okay? So Abaye here, he says, Amar Abaye, Hai chamra diyama shrei, Torah diyama asir, v'simenach, tameh tahor tahor tameh. So the donkey of the sea, whatever that is, it's some type of fish that looks like a donkey. So it's tahor. But the oxfish, okay, is asur. So now it's the opposite, right? So it's tameh tahor tahor tameh, because the ox is kasher, but the oxfish is not kasher. Amar Ashi shvar nuna shrei, kdash nuna asir. So the shvar fish is permitted, it says Rashi, and the kdash fish is. Okay, the kdash fish is prohibited. V'simenaich kodesh laHashem. Okay, so why Kodesh LaHashem? In the sense that the Kadash fish is asur. So it's only for Hashem. You're not allowed to eat it. At least I think that's what it means. V'kedamri kvar nuna asur. You have the kvar fish is asur, so you're not kivrei goyim. Okay, so basically you have here this idea of a tameh tahor tahor tameh, which I just thought was interesting because it's a mnemonic device, but by Abraham and Haman it's tameh tameh tahor tahor. So you have to remember which mnemonic device is for which example, otherwise you might get confused. Or you
need siman la siman.
Or you need a siman la siman. Exactly. Okay, if you remember, we mentioned that Shimshon had a mother whose name was Slelponit. So the Agato Yavetz comments, he says, Nira li hatav taut sofer. V'tzarich lomar Slelponi, without the tav at the end. V'nizker divrei yamim alev daled b'mishpachot atzarati. So there's actually someone named Slelponi that's mentioned divrei yamim. Asher shma nikra makom tzirah. Right, that's from Makomo Shel Manoach. In other words, what's the connection? That right, Ben Tzara Ben Mishtaol. I think it's Mishtaol, but that's where Shimshon was from. Mm-hmm. So that's why this idea is he made Shimshon Slelponi or Ponit, because she's mentioned in the context of that place in Divrei Yamim. Okay. All right. If we move on to the fourth teaching. So So 10 shanim nechbash Avraham. Right, this is the fourth one. Third one, sorry. The third teaching, that Avraham was imprisoned for 10 years. So the Maharsha comments on this. He says, Efshar she'aya nechbash. Avraham was in prison for 10 years.
Supposed to be there?
According to this midrash, he was in prison for 10 years. Maharsha is going to ask that question. Efshar she'aya nechbash mispar 10 shanim. 10 שנים, לפי שבין 3 שנים היה אברהם כשהכיר את בוראו. שנאמר עקב אשר שמע וכו'. Right? The Midrash says, Avraham Avinu was 3 years old when he recognized Hashem. Right? How do we know that? Because it says, עקב אשר שמע אברהם בקולי, וישמור משמורתי מצוותיך וחוקותיי ותורותיי. עקב בגימטריה 172. והוא מת ב-175. So if that means that he was 3 when he recognized Hashem, because from then on, he was Shema b'kol Hashem. כדאמרינן בנדרים, right?
When he was 3.5, he knew who Hashem is.
Yeah, according to this midrash.
I see so small.
כדאמרינן בנדרים. Okay, that's what it says נדרים. וכיוון שהיה קטן, but since he was little, so the Maharsha says, חבשו אותו ולא דנו אותו למיתה עד אחר 10 שנים, שהיה נעשה בן 13. In other words, what's Maharsha trying to understand? Why was he in jail for 10 years? Maharsha says, because he was 3 when he recognized Hashem. He made a balagan as a 3-year-old, like a little 3-year-old. Then threw him in jail, but he wasn't, they wouldn't put him to death because he was only 3. So he was in jail for 10 years, because at 13, then he's already a bar chiyuva, right? שהיה נעשה בין 13 שנים, שבא לכלל איש, ואז דנו אותו למיטה והפילו לכבשן האש. So he connects it to the midrash, they threw Avram to כבשן האש, that he was 13 years old. והצילו הקדוש ברוך הוא כדאית במדרש. והפייטן בסילוק של ראש השנה, של יום ב', the second day of ראש השנה, יסד, so this is one of the פייטנים there, he wrote, ונחבא בארץ 13 שנה, ולאחר 13 יצא מתוכן. Okay, so there's a piyut on the second day of Rosh Hashanah where it says Avram was in jail for 13 years. So Maharsha says, Eino al pi halakha dishmatin, right? It's not according to what we say here, which is 10 years. כדאמרינן שלא יחבוש רק 10 שנים. But the Maharsha suggests, יש ליישב על פי ההלכה, זה הכי כמה, this is what it means to say, ונחבא היה בארץ עד שהיו לו 13 שנים. In other words, he says the Paitan held like me, right? This whole chap of how I'm trying to be miyashev, all these different midrashim, the Paitan must have said that as well.
V'kalavin?
V'kalavin, yeah. Or v'kaimalan, I'm not sure.
What's plural?
Okay, so that was the third teaching. Quick idea on the fourth teaching. Oto hayom niftar Avraham Avinu. Right, so we said what? Right, oy lo leolam she'abad manigo. Right, ve'oy la lasfina she'avad kabarnita. So the question is, why does it say both? Right, what's the idea? So kafala inyan, according to Maharsha, he actually goes on and on, but I just brought kind of the sikum of it. ויש לפרש בזה שהיה אברהם שלם במעלות השכליות ומידות, ומודיע לבריאות מציאותו ברוך הוא. In other words, on the one hand, Avraham Avinu, right, he recognized Hashem, and then he went around and he, explained to people intellectually why they should believe in the existence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But in addition to that, gam hora lehem derech yishar b'midot. In other words, he wasn't just, a philosopher, but he also, taught people how to behave appropriately in a moral way. כמו שכתוב בפסוק, ואת הנפש אשר עשו בחרן. So the Maharsha goes on to say, right, so that's why when he died, they mourned him on both of these aspects, right? That in other words, he was a leader in terms of bringing people closer to Hashem in terms of their understanding. Because he steered people in the right direction in terms of their midot and how they should behave. Mm-hmm. Okay, and there's other mufashim that say similarly, but I didn't bring their opinions here. And just to conclude, the Yun Yaakov mentions this on this fourth teaching as well. He quotes Breshit Rabbah, Lametet Peskat Yud Aleph, and he notes the obvious connection between the statements. Amar Rabbi Levi, לא שם אדם פרה מאברהם עד שנתברך, ולא שמע לו עד שנתברך מאברהם. So a person never, praised the value of a cow to sell to Avraham without being blessed, and vice versa, right? They never had a cow praised by Avraham without being blessed. Is anyone who did business with Avraham, either to buy or to sell something, even if the transaction didn't go through, it was just to the point of appraisal, of starting the transaction, so they got a bracha from Avraham. Ketzad, how did that work? Avraham היה מתפלל על עקרות ונפקדות. Right, that Avraham used to pray for the עקרות and they would become pregnant. ועל החולים Marvichim. And the sick would be healed. I should have brought this in Bava Batra in the beginning of the Masechah. Remember, I think we touched on this once. That Abraham wore something like an amulet around his neck, right? A special rock, and whoever looked at it would be healed. Rav Huna amar, lo sof davar Abraham olech etzel al-choleh, ela al-choleh ro'eh oto u'moviach. So Rav Huna says, Abraham didn't even have to go visit the sick people to heal them. Anyone who looked at him would immediately be healed from any choli that he had.
Even again, if he didn't have it on.
So I'm saying, it doesn't say here the thing about the necklace. That's a different midrash. That's not in this one. Although I think we brought up in a shiur, right, that there's a midrash that says, Ad shelo ba X la'olam, there was never such and such a thing, right? So the Ad shelo ba Yaakov la'olam, there was never chulsha, right? Like sickness before death. Until Elisha came, there was never. So then Tosfot asked a question there, but Avraham Avinu had this amulet on. So didn't that mean there was choli in the days of Abraham? And Tosfot gives whatever answer that he gives. So also we could have asked based on this. I guess Tosfot didn't ask on this Bereshit Rabbah, where it also seems to imply that there was choli before the time of Yaakov Avinu. But okay, so אמר רבי חנינא, אפילו ספינות שהיו מפרשות בים הגדול, היו ניצולות בזכותו של אברהם. Okay? So any ships that were out at sea, that were in danger of capsizing, were saved by the merit of Avraham Avinu. So then the Midrash, I was like, when I heard this, like, what is the Midrash? Like, this is so funny. ולא של יין נסך היו. In other words, how could Avraham Avinu, through his chut, have saved these ships that were out at sea? But they were carrying yain nesach. Oh, he's going to save yain. Right, exactly. They're going to. You're going to save yain nesach.
It sounds like something that they would like take out so that the goyim wouldn't.
Censored.
Yeah,
to censor that this was like censored and put back in. Yeah, it's also so like okay, but if there are people on the boat, I don't really understand. Ela chala mezil chamra. The answer is even stranger than the question. Ela chala mezil chamra. B'chol makom sheyayin udei kochavim atzui yayin shel Yisrael nimkar bezol. That if you destroy yayin nesech, so then that the whole market for wine, the prices increase because there's a lack of wine in the market. So also the Jewish wine that's kasher would become more expensive. So that's why Avram didn't want to destroy yain nesech, so that it wouldn't cost all the Jews that didn't exist in his day because he was the first Yehudi. It wouldn't cost them more money to buy wine for Shabbat, which also hadn't been given yet.
Adam was the first Yehudi.
What? Avram was the first Yehudi. I'm saying.
No, Adam was one.
No, Avram was the first Yehudi. I'm saying this is such an interesting answer because it's saying, okay, today if I destroy yain nesech, so then it makes the yain kasher more expensive. But why would that mean that Avraham wouldn't save boats back in his day? Like I don't really. It's it's kind of a funny thing. What was your question? Sorry. What was your question?
I think I forgot it.
Okay.
Wait, no, didn't I? Let me think.
So if
the guy was not Yehudi, how did he know about Hashem?
There are also non-Yehudim that know about Hashem.
Cool.
There were 7 Nevi'ei Wot HaOlam.
In this day.
Okay.
No!